Hello and welcome to Dr. Mildred Fay Jefferson's Vital Concerns. I'm Connie Murphy, and we are very happy to welcome two priests from the Deaf Apostolate of the Archdiocese of Boston, Father Shawn Carey, who is the Assistant Director of the Deaf Apostolate, and he is also parochial vicar of St. John the Evangelist Parish in Hopkinton, and interpreting for us today is Father Jeremy St.Martin. Welcome, Father.
Thank you for having me here.
We have a lot of questions about the recent World Youth Day. Why did the deaf community attend, and can you tell me who attended?
The deaf community went to World Youth Day because we were trying to support each other in the Catholic faith. We wanted to give our deaf great access to the Catholic faith through World Youth Day. And we also wanted to give them an opportunity to meet other deaf Catholics in the international community to share their faith with them. We had about 26 people in our group, 13 kids and 13 young adults all together. It was an awesome group. There were several members of our group who had various kinds of weaknesses, like one person was blind, one person had Usher syndrome, one person had autism, one person had cerebral palsy, and there was one person who had spinal bifida. Also, there was another person with a pacemaker. So, and all of them were also deaf, but it was an awesome group. Yeah.
I imagine you had a lot of medical people with you to assist, is that right?
Actually, no, we didn't have medical people with us, but we had some parent leaders who were responsible if their son or daughter had a special medical need. But we also had professional interpreters with us who were outstanding. They were actually trilingual interpreters who knew Spanish, English, and American Sign Language. This recent World Youth Day was in Madrid, in Spain, so some of the content of the events was in Spanish, so they could translate directly from Spanish into ASL. It was awesome.
What were the challenges experienced during World Youth Day, and how were they overcome?
There were many, many challenges that week, especially because of the weather. It was very hot. It was very easy to become dehydrated. That was my number one concern as a leader. When we had group meetings, I was telling them, you've got to bring a lot of bottles of water with you, and soda is not water, coffee is not water. I was telling them that they needed to be ready to persevere and not give up, and they really listened and they learned a lot. Another challenge was walking. We had to walk through these very crowded areas. Sometimes we were stuck in the crowd and we had our hands on each other's shoulders in a long line trying to get through a very crowded place. But we had this big banner, an awesome banner, and it had the logo for the Archdiocese of Boston and the logo for Sacred Heart Parish in Newton, where the deaf go in Newton for the Archdiocese of Boston. And also on the back of the banner we had this giant I love you hand shape. And so it helped people not get lost, and it also attracted many people in the crowd to come up to us and express the I love you handshake to us, to say I love you. It was great. Each member of the group has had their own special weaknesses, sometimes physical weaknesses, but we had some people stand up in front of the group and explain their specific physical limitations so that other members of the group would be available to help. One person, for example, stood up and explained what Usher syndrome was and expanded upon that so we could all learn about it. And then later when we were walking, we were better able to help that person by lending that person our shoulder so that they could be guided through the crowd. And the other thing we learned is that deaf people can really lead blind people. Each person in the group had weaknesses, but the weaknesses became their strengths. It was sort of like our weaknesses, when they're offered up to the Lord, they become strength that He gives us.
How did the experience benefit the deaf at World Youth Day?
That's a great question. Because of their learning experiences and coming to learn about each other's weaknesses, they all were people who experienced what it meant to be the body of Christ, the one body of Christ, and how much strength there is in that, how much mutual respect and love and support there is in an experience of the body of Christ. For that full week, we figured that there were some events we couldn't go to, but our real goal was to make sure we got to the last Mass with Pope Benedict, and that Mass was really World Youth Day itself. And that was our goal we kept in sight. So for the full week, everything was geared up to that day. So we were practicing walking, supporting each other, because that last walk would be a great challenge, full of awful, crowded situations. It's a situation in which you could easily become dehydrated, but we were lucky. We had a good plan set up to achieve that goal, and when we arrived near that field and we got off at the train station, we decided at that train station that we were going to split into two groups. One group could walk and another group could take a bus, and we would meet at the field. So we agreed to do that, and we split into two groups. But when we arrived at the field, it was amazing. As we were walking through these vast crowds, we saw fire trucks coming with water cannons shooting water up into the air, and all the people were yelling out for water. Spray the water over here. Some people were holding bottles, trying to get the water from the fire truck to fill their bottles. We were looking at our group and we were scared. And I saw stretchers going by us in the opposite direction. And I was thinking to myself, I hope my group doesn't have members who pass out or something or get heat stroke. So we were trying to get through the crowd, and finally we arrived at our area, and the other group that took the bus, they also arrived at the field and went in, and they had a hard time going through the crowd, very hard time. They almost gave up, but God's grace is amazing. There was a nun who showed up. Her name was Sister Olga. She saw us, she saw that part of the group, and she said, "Do you need help?" And we were we said, we're desperate here. It's very hard to get through, and we have some people with physical weaknesses. So she gave us 2 wheelchairs, and for 2 of the members of our group, a blind person and another person who was having some other physical limitations. But the challenges were that it was hard to push the wheelchairs through the sand. Father Jeremy was pushing, but the group didn't give up, and the other group had already arrived and was looking for them and waiting for them. But then when we saw the other group coming, we were very excited, and our group became one again, and we were thrilled, and we all really got to love each other as brothers and sisters. So that was a benefit. Learning to become one strong body of Christ, that's really what was the benefit.
Speaking of the Pope Benedict XVI, what were some of the messages imparted on the deaf from World Youth Day, and especially, can you tell us some of the messages from His Holiness?
One of the most important message that really impacted us is when the Pope said, your faith is something that is a gift from God. It's a gift that you cannot see, and it is a gift that isn't a result of your own effort. It's a gift that comes to you through other generations that you need to share with the next generation. That was a great message, because many youth don't understand faith today. They think that faith must be something tangible that you can see, that they think maybe it's about proof, but it's not about proof. That was a great message for our kids to understand better about the gift of faith. Another message that was really impactful was as the Pope Benedict XVI looked around at all the youth in Madrid, all 5 different continents there, 2 million people, and the Pope was sitting there looking around at all these youth, and he said, you youth are all here because you're here to show your faith, because you're here because you want the truth. You're looking for the truth. That was a powerful message. It was a great experience for the youth to gather together. We met so many deaf Catholics from other countries. It was awesome. Even though they had different sign languages, we had the opportunity to learn each other's sign languages, and that was awesome. And also, one important thing is that the deaf youth were able to share their faith with other deaf youth.
Would you go back to a future World Youth Day?
Well, from our group, all the unanimous response from our entire group was, yes, we want to go again. At the beginning, it was tough. They were kind of thinking, what is this? But we had to emphasize to them it wasn't a vacation, but that it was a pilgrimage. And they learned a lot through the challenges of a pilgrimage, but it was a great benefit for them for that week. The next one is in Rio de Janeiro, and that's in the year 2013.
Let's talk about some efforts by governments and others to abort and activate so-called physician-assisted suicide, especially as it impacts the disabled, including the deaf.
I'm very disappointed to learn about those recent efforts, and it makes me think, what's wrong with the world? What are their what's their problem? They want all the people of the world to become perfect people. They're missing a lot. They're missing the gift